Hey everybody, today my guest is Walker Higgins, and Walker Higgins is one of the toughest endurance athletes on the planet. You know, finishing grueling races that we'll talk about, like a 135-mile Badwater through Death Valley and the Spartathlon, 153 miles through Greece, and we'll talk all about that. You know, and looking at Walker, you would never think that he's ever had hard times. I mean, he's the kind of guy that looks like he can push through anything. But you'll find out in a few minutes that's not necessarily the truth, as it is with all of us. But today he's a world-class ultramarathoner. Everybody in that world knows about him, and he really is a world-class. But he's also a very successful entrepreneur, a really good friend of mine, and an example how endurance is more than about running. I mean, you've endured a lot. So, Walker, welcome today. So glad to have you. You and I really actually go back all the way to LSU days. I was teaching a marketing class.
Yeah, it's a long time ago now.
That was a long time
21
ago.
or so
and
years.
I think I remember you knew that I was a runner and that you came up after class. I honestly remember it one day telling me that you were taking a certification for one of the fitness levels or something.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I'd maybe bought shoes from you a couple of times. And I knew that my brother had taken classes from you 13 years before or so.
Yes, Miles.
Yeah, and I think I had raced against you in a team in an adventure race, and that's where I put the two together, that you were my teacher, and also knowing that you had had the running store, Varsity Sports.
Oh, the adventure, I forgot about those. Man,
yeah.
y'all's team was killer team. That's another one of the things that you've done and done well.
Yeah. We had a lot of fun in that arena for a long time. So.
Yeah, those are fun. I'd forgotten all about those. Yeah, we had some fun teams out there too, so that was great. You know, but from conversations we've had over the years, I know you've made it very public, you know, some of your early struggles with addiction and alcohol and drugs. But the thing that I don't think I realized until recently, and I bet a lot of other people don't, is how early you struggle with that, and here you are today. You know, you tell me it was back in high school. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's looking back, it's kind of crazy to think that I had kind of maybe gotten to such a level of addiction and alcoholism and at such a young age. But I actually had, to no fault of their own, but I had older brothers, and I think a lot of kids that maybe have older brothers are exposed, or older siblings are exposed at a younger age to things. And then I was always just I had this insatiable appetite for adventure, and I still do. And
that's an interesting parallel. You know, your adventure then had a different outlet than your adventures now.
It definitely is. And so I think that I eventually discovered drugs and alcohol. And
what was it? Drinking, drugs, everything, anything? I just can't even imagine that as a small town high school kid.
Yeah, I guess.
Where did you go to high school? Weren't you?
I went to Lehigh. Same as you.
Oh, that's right. You did.
Yeah,
I keep thinking of you as being a Port Allen.
We're alumni together. So, family is originally from Port Allen, West Baton Rouge, but I ended up going to Lehigh. And I think, but it was actually before that. So middle school, I somehow started experimenting with weed and drinking, but I was always. How did that happen?
You know, it was after school parties.
Combination of
anything,
things.
Everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I was the younger brother at high school parties. I mean, I was 6th and 7th grade going to high school parties and stuff, and I was always exposed to being around adults and stuff. My family was pretty social, and so I think I fit in well in that environment. I was maybe a little more mature in how I carried myself, so it was like most people just looked at me as just like this, like, high school kid, but I was really a lot younger. And so by 12 years old, I was already drinking and smoking weed, and it just progressed from there. And
when did anybody start noticing it, or when did you start noticing, like, hey, I'm 12 and I'm drunk?
Probably the first time.
And I'm staying that way from now till
I just to me it was just fun. Honestly, and that's what I thought. I don't know if I look back, if I think like it was if I can pinpoint like what I was trying to escape necessarily, but I just...
Was it escape? In high school, I don't know if it's always an escape as opposed to this is just tons of fun.
Yeah, I don't know, really. I think it was just, maybe it became escape. Eventually my parents went through a divorce and things like that in the midst of that, but I don't think that was like the driving force initially. So it just progressed, and I guess it got to a point to where I knew that, it was an issue. My friends that I hung around,
or your parents knew, or your friends knew, or simultaneously?
Well, eventually I got arrested a couple of times and things like that.
What you get arrested for?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of the different times. I mean, I think like,
different times.
Yeah.
A whole another side.
I don't condone some of the decisions I made, but I think I got arrested being intoxicated or, on drugs or alcohol at a young age, and parents had to come pick me up and things like that. But eventually it came to a boiling point, and I ended up, unfortunately, pretty much overdosing and nearly dying.
On one specific occasion?
One specific occasion, yes. I was.
Do you mind sharing that?
No, I'm kind of an open book with it all. I had been essentially arrested the week before. My parents had both went out of town, and my dad asked me to promise him not to do anything that weekend, and I did, and I promised him, but I didn't keep my promise. And he went out of town. A couple of friends came over and brought over, what I thought was just going to be a fun, casual evening at my dad's house. They brought over some LSD and weed, and something was not good with whatever we got, and I essentially lost my mind and ripped apart the house, and it was pretty fragile situation. I almost bled to death. And what,
you fell on something and cut yourself?
No, I ended up cutting up my arms really bad, punching a bunch of glass, and it just caused this whole cascade of panic, I guess, in the state of mind I was in. And I had called my brother, luckily, maybe 30 minutes before that, and I told him on the phone something's not right. And he came over, and by the time he got there, I was completely out of it. And
bad stuff or too much of it?
Probably both. But then I was taken out of that house. I saw, to go into a lot of details, maybe too much, but I had removed all my clothes, and I was running around, not even coherent with what was happening.
You remember that, or that was recounted to you?
I remember it like it's like just photos, like little stills of what was happening. And I remember seeing cop lights and my friend holding me and just saying, calm down. And I remember seeing cops come up the stairs and getting maced, and then being carried down the stairs in a straitjacket, and being put into into a ambulance. And then it's like little blips. The next, I guess, day and a half, 2 days was them sedating me to try to get me to level out in the Our Lady of the Lake. And then all my family got to come in from vacation and discover what was happening with me, the baby of the family. And
do you remember how old you were then?
I was 16.
16.
Yeah. And I'll get a little emotional because it's still tough to realize, how bad off I was. But I remember the social worker coming in, and she, I just told her, I said, I remember saying, I need help. And, those words changed my life. Sorry. But it's still tough because it's just knowing that I was in such a fragile state, and just needed help. And so I was checked into the Tall Center, and my life was forever changed because I was willing and ready to make the change. And it wasn't easy. It was very rough through high school. But once I kind of found my way and kind of knew that I couldn't do that anymore, it didn't become easy. It just became that it wasn't necessarily an option for me. Yeah. And that was September 5th of 1998, and that's still, thank God, that's still my sobriety date somehow, which is, I look back and think it's crazy. How did I stay sober through college? I mean, I was not an angel. I did not necessarily just become sober and live a perfect life. I mean, I had roommates that had keg parties all the time, and I went out in Tigerland all the time, and went out clubs all around the world, and I've experienced life, but I just knew that was not really an option for me anymore because I was so close to dying, and it was rapidly progressing on a constant basis. And I'd be dead today, I'm positive in my mind, if I wouldn't have gotten sober.
So many years ago. I even asked you the other day if you thought you could drink another beer.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because as a maybe an alcoholic, people say, well, can you drink one? Well, yeah, absolutely, I can drink one. Should I? Absolutely not. I don't think it's probably ever a good idea for me. I try not to frame it up in a long-term basis, but I think part of the sobriety is my willingness to endure and that grit, and I think it's lended itself in so many different areas of my life, and also just that extreme hard-headedness. I remember getting sober, thinking, like, seeing people that had been sober for such a long time being like, oh, I'm going to be sober longer than them one day.
well, this is that question that, we talked about, is the thought is, does an addict just trade one addiction for the other, when you take on extreme distances and adventures, or it's just your adventuresome personality finding a new outlet?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. A lot of people, there's no judgment cast or anything like that, but I think that is a very common thing, especially in endurance sports. They've seen that the way the brain relates those endorphins to drinking and alcohol is very similar. So I think that's a fair thing to think. And I've questioned myself at times as well, because I try as much as I can to be true to myself and, check what's going on and things like that. But I think with my knowledge and health and fitness, I've been able to not necessarily be like the type that's, I have to run today. Yeah, I've got to get in the run. If I need to take off, I take off. I'm able to kind of have those twofold things. Like, I really would like to run, but have the knowledge of what recovery will do for me from a physical standpoint of the body, not like recovery is in AA or sobriety. So I think that I've been able to balance it pretty well and not necessarily make it an addiction, but I would say it's definitely an obsession. For sure.
And a real positive one for you, because like I said, you're well known all over the world for what you do. And a lot has happened since the day that 16 when you were in the hospital, and most of it extremely positive, including having just a gorgeous daughter, Mia.
Yeah, definitely a lot has happened over the years. My daughter's amazing. She's starting 9th grade at St. Joseph's, so I'm super excited. I met
her when you were pushing her as a infant in the stroller on runs.
I pushed her in that stroller till she was 7, and it became apparent that she still loved riding in it, but she was spilling over it, and we had probably thousands of great miles together in races.
And she
such.
runs now, doesn't she?
She does a little bit. She likes soccer. That's her deal. And
good.
I want her to just find whatever her passion is, you know. As a obsessive runner, I would love for her to find whatever she finds is that outlet, you know. And as a person in the fitness industry, I also and very health conscious. I really want her to, you know, hopefully have whatever that is, and then keep it for a lifetime, you know. I think it's given me so much and so much grounding and so much positivity, and helps me mentally. So I would love for her to have that. And she's very much similar to me in the fact that she wants to go do all the sports, because that's what I did in high school or middle school. I would after school I'd do 4 hours of sports, and then I'd go home and ride my bike. And so this is not necessarily a new walker that loves.
No, I mean, to
tons
look
of
at you, you can
activity.
tell you're
I've always been
extremely athletic and you know, obviously talented. Well, tell us about a couple of the really interesting things. I mean, you've done the Badlands 135 that's hard to get into, but harder to complete. If people don't know it, that's through the desert and heat, and it's just, I don't know how many people finish it. And let me ask you this question, because and it's one I wanted to ask that will lead you into this. I want you to tell me, what's the grossest thing? I want you to gross me out, because you know, every time I see people in ultramarathons, like, oh my gosh, anyway. Right. Well, tell me the grossest thing.
Yeah, there's plenty of gross things that I've experienced. I mean, I've, you know, at this point raced hundreds of races. But I did think of one that is maybe just a different level of dedication, possibly. And it was actually in a marathon. So to start a marathon, I couldn't find a porta potty, and I had to go behind this is gross, and most people won't understand it, but I had to go behind a bush, and there was also no toilet paper. But it was very cold. It was 30 degrees, so I had on gloves. But I have Raynaud's circulation issue in my fingers, and so I couldn't lose my gloves. But I used my left glove, ran the entire marathon, and then threw away my glove after, and never used that hand to touch myself or anything. I tried wiping it off in the dirt, but. So
that's pretty yucky, but unfortunately there's probably some marathoners out there that say, ooh, that was me.
There's maybe someone who's done that before. I think most probably would have been smart and got rid of the glove, but I eventually did, maybe like 15 miles in, because it warmed up. But with the Raynaud's circulation, I couldn't ditch the glove because my hands would have been hurting.
That's a pretty yucky one. All right, take us into the desert in Death Valley, because I know you've done it a couple times, hadn't you?
I've only raced it once, but I've crewed it 3 other times.
And you have a real good crew that follows you, including your Gabby.
Yeah. You really have to have, so Badwater, like you said, 135 miles, starts in the lowest point in the continental U.S., in Death Valley, and it ends at Mount Whitney, which is the highest point in the continental U.S. So you end at the trail portal to Mount Whitney, and you go out there and you spectate as a crew person, and you're like, all these people are crazy. They're all crazy, because they are. I mean, I can say that. Like, watching the start, which the start is at 8, 9, or 10 p.m. at night. It's typically about 115 degrees at night at the start. It's in July, and it doesn't get cooler. You know, some years you might have dips, but most of the time it's between 115 to 100 and maybe 30.
Well, you've got a good place to train here in Louisiana.
Yes, Louisiana training definitely helps. The humidity, it's very different. The adage is, oh, it's a dry heat out there. It's way hotter out there. Here, you can't necessarily cool your body. Out there, if you have on tech gear and you're spraying yourself and wetting yourself, you can cool it. But the race is really just, it's an amazing experience. Unfortunately, I didn't have a great go the year that I ran, but I'm actually planning to go back next year if I can get in again. So it's a very screened race as well. There's 100 racers a year, and you typically have, I think it's like a 70+ percentage finish rate. And it's a very high finish rate for 100 milers or above.
But they're screened.
But they're so screened. Everyone is capable. You have to have like all of these proven records. I mean, it's a very in-depth process that they use to get you in there. So, and it's just it's one of the races that I would say is just the pinnacle of the sport.
And by reputation, it definitely is.
Yeah, it's way up there. There's a couple of other ones as well, and it's just beyond hard. To compare, when people ask, well, like, you know, what's a good way to like tell you how hard it is? And say in Louisiana, you go on a hot run and you feel a little bad, and you're like, oh, it's 4 miles, and you feel a little bad, and you make it through it. Out there, with the heat being so hot, I find that if you feel a little bad, within 5 minutes, you could be completely inebriated, like in a sense of just you're, you know, throwing up. Like it almost like ramps up everything times like 500.
Do you TT at all?
You try to. Yeah, you try to. You have to use Biffy bags, which are like
Do they monitor that urine output at stations?
They weigh you at the beginning, and then at some check-ins, if you need, they'll weigh you, but you don't necessarily have to weigh in throughout the race. You know, if you're looking like you're retaining a ton of fluid or either losing a bunch, you can get a call to medical and things like that. So,
do you get to those points, like let's say 100 miles, when you're saying I cannot go another step, but then find another gear, or is it just a continual grind?
Yeah. So something I've done is my strongest suit I've figured out as a racer is my ability to redirect, and I've never told myself I can't in a race. I don't even use that vocabulary. Like it's not even a word that I even use.
That's a life lesson that we need to add.
It really, I think it really is. So I just never say I can't. I've said numerous times, and like envisioning the race as I'm going, I've said by the time of the next aid station, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep going. And I've never been able to not keep going. So I think a lot of that falls back with some of the experiences I've had in life. We all have hard experiences. You know, no doubt we all have a different road, but I've been able to use that to think like, oh, it could get worse.
Yeah, compared to.
Yeah, yes. Right. I mean, it could be worse, or even if I'm throwing up in a race or whatever that may be, it could still get worse. So can I keep moving? So, you know, something that I've kind of held on to, and eventually it'll probably fall off. I've never DNF'd a race. I like having that personally. But you know, one day I might break an ankle and not be able to finish, or whatever that may be. At this point, I'm still holding on to it until I can't.
Well, speaking of it can't get worse, I think it did get worse later on. Just a couple years ago, I know, because we did a send-off run, and you know, we're so proud of you because you traveled to Greece to do the Spartathlon from Athens to Sparta. Tell us about what the historical tradition for that is and how hard that is to get into or even run.
Right. That's another, you know, kind of race that's way up there along with Badwater. In Europe, it holds more clout, I would say, probably than Badwater. The Badwater, or maybe just as much. But here, a lot of people don't really know much about Spartathlon. I think just because of the separation. You know, we're over here, they're over there. So Spartathlon starts in Athens, Greece. You start at the foot of the name escapes me right now, but the Parthenon, and or the Parthenon, and so you run out of Athens, and you're essentially making your way all the way into Sparta. That race covers 153 miles. It's all on road except for it used to be partially gravel roads and things like that, but it's basically all paved except for a few mile section at mile 100 where you cross this mountain range that is.
So there's elevation changes. Huh?
Yeah, at mile 100. How nice of them, right?
Convenient.
So you have a going over these kind of ancient goat trails. So it's like everything about that race is just so cool. Just running past these 2,000 plus year old monuments and ruins, and running through the olive groves, and so that race is just, again, very hard to get in. They only take 25 Americans a year, if that. They allow 400 racers a year, and that race, from a speed perspective, I'd say is harder to get in than Badwater, because you have to, everyone who enters that has to have run a sub 21 hour 100 miler.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, you have to, and then the race itself, to get through mile 50, I can't remember what the time cutoff is exactly. It might be 9 hours, but you can't just slow play it. You've got to start pretty aggressive, and you got to go after it.
That's an interesting cutoff. That,
yeah,
you can't pace yourself really.
Right. Yeah. So it's pretty quick, but the time makes sense for any runners run under 21 hours. Yeah. In my mind, it does, at least. And that 50-mile section is the Corinth Canal, which is this like 4-mile canal that is cut down a couple of 100 feet, connecting two oceans, or two, not oceans, but the two seas. And I can't tell you exactly where, but it's a very interesting site and really cool. So yeah, that race
and you
is
trained
amazing.
hard for that. Because I remember we followed you. We even actually had a pool going at varsity on what time you were going to finish in. But I know in talking to you, you get over there, and 2 days before the race, you come down with a cold. I mean, oh my God, every racer has faced that dilemma. And what do you do? And well, you can tell the rest.
Yeah, it's not the first time I've went into a race with a cold. It's definitely the longest race I've done with a cold. And I sat down the day before the race. I knew I was having like some allergy stuff, but I sat down for lunch finally day before the race. Exactly. And when I sat down, I realized, I'm absolutely exhausted. I have no energy. And now I think it was probably COVID at the time, unfortunately, but that's whatever it was, so flu or COVID or whatever. And I ended up, waking up that next morning thinking, if maybe I'll feel great. And I think I just felt the excitement of the race, but I didn't feel great. And 4 miles into the race, I was running with a guy, Matt Collins, out of New York. And coincidentally, we ran parts of Badwater together. So it was really cool. I hadn't seen him since. So it's like this little reunion. We're running, and I look at my watch, and really my starting pace, I wanted to start at 8-minute miles. And to me, I thought that was kind of a good pace, but conservative to start.
If you say so.
Yeah. And I looked, we're 4 miles in, and I was exhausted. And I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting day. And then it really was. There's plenty of moments that were really good and really bad, and I made it. I think I was probably top 20, maybe 15th, getting to mile 50, and then the wheels just kind of kept unraveling. Amazing experience though.
With 85 miles to go.
Right. Yeah. Well, wait. 153.
Oh, shoot, I'm thinking Badwater time.
Yeah,
oh my God.
So yeah, nearly 100 miles to go, or whatever. 103 miles to go, and I was just depleted. At one point, I did pull over in that race to go to the bathroom, and oddly, I couldn't go to the bathroom early, and I finally did. And something that I'd only experienced one other time before, this is kind of gross, but it's ultra running. I peed, and the urine had like this raw meat smell.
Well,
and
that's up there with the grossometer.
Yeah, but
maybe that's part of the story you're going to tell later. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's okay to spill the beans on that, but
no, perfect.
I ended up being like, oh, I've smelled that one other race before. So I keep going. I pull it together. I'm actually doing pretty well. I hook up with this Spaniard. I cross over this canal and I turn, and all of a sudden the Spaniard from Argentina is just leaned over, puking his brains out. And the spirit of ultra is pretty amazing, and I really like to try to honor that. And so I went up to him, and I don't know why, I just thought I'm gonna put my hand on his back and just ask if he's okay. And I stopped and I was like, "Are you okay?" And he kind of looked up at me and he was like, he didn't speak English, and I think he said "sí." And so I said, "You want to go?" And he was like, "Yeah." We ran 75 miles together straight, without breaking apart, and we communicated as brokenly as we could. And he's now like a lifelong friend. We message each other occasionally. He lives in Italy now, and him and I tackled those next 75 miles like a team. And then eventually we kind of separated. I hit like a really bad spell of throwing up again myself, and
you just said go on.
Yeah, he went on, and then I caught him at one point, and we kind of went back and forth. But it was like we both knew at that point, okay, we're racing, we're back in it a little bit. Neither of us had the race we wanted to have, but I ended up pulling it together and running one of the fastest splits the last 13 miles, which is 13 miles going down these amazing mountains into Sparta.
Where there's all kind of kids waving flags.
It's just the most impassioned people. The entire race, you're running through all these little villages, and you constantly get, in the middle of the night, morning, afternoon, didn't matter when, you get bravo, 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 Spartathlon, and you have kids riding bikes beside you, and then you don't have anyone for miles, and then you run to another town, it's the same thing. And it's just amazing. And then the culmination of that is getting into Sparta, and you run the streets, and then you turn to the main square of the town, and it's King Leonidas statue that you finish at, and you run up and you kiss his feet, and they put the wreaths on your head, and they let you drink out of a chalice from the Euphrates River. And I mean, it's like water from the Euphrates, and it's just, whew. Even that, I get emotional just because it's so amazing. You did it. And that race, I said a million times. I think we had a phone call in the night with you at one point. Gabby was trying to ask you what I should do. And I was wrecked. I did not think I was going to make it through that.
And I had a hard time getting in touch with you towards the end. And come to find out, you're in a Greek hospital, and with, I'm not gonna be able to say it, so I'm gonna go ahead and say Rabido.
Yeah.
So it was pretty serious push through you did there, Walker.
Right.
Tell everybody about that.
Yeah. So I had, I finished really strong, and I felt good. And then that's the only race I've ever been to that offers a banana bag, like a bag of saline, if you need it. And I was like, no, I'm good. I literally destroyed the last 13 miles. I felt great. And I didn't drink anything for about an hour. And I think the rhabdo I had set in at that point, and I started not being able to keep anything down. I got back to the hotel and instantly threw up. And then I had nothing to throw up, and I kept throwing up. My crew had went to their rooms, and I couldn't stop. And I eventually didn't even know where my crew was. I didn't know where their room was because we had never been in that hotel. And I wandered around crawling, and I found my crew, and it was really like villas. So it wasn't a hotel. It was easy to find. And I banged on the door, and one of my crewmates came out, and I said, I've got to go to the hospital. Because I took a picture of myself, and I saw my eyes, and it was not good. And so we rushed to the hospital and got checked in, and it was amazing that the treatment was all covered. It's social medicine. I would say it was probably 1960s protocol over there. It was very much reminiscent of watching an old movie.
Yeah, You sent some pictures. I'm going to have to include that at the end of this podcast.
That's completely fine. You can share any of them. And but they pumped me, I think, with 8 bags of saline, and come to find out that they did determine that I had a cold or something like that. They said my white blood cell count was very low, and I had a rhabdomyolysis level, which rhabdo is short.
Explain what that is to everybody, what that really means.
Yeah, so every day our body's breaking down, and I might say this like a doctor. I'm not a doctor, and I don't know. I only know it because I did extensive research about it when I was experiencing it. But every day our body breaks down constantly, and you are breaking down proteins, and that's you release creatine kinase into your blood, and it becomes such a level that they call it rhabdomyolysis, where your muscles are breaking down at such a rate that your kidneys can no longer flush that creatine kinase out. And so after a lot of marathons, you have athletes with rhabdo, and it's about, you can look online, the statistics will say like maybe 15,000, which daily, like right now, you and I are probably between 200 to 300, the solid number. And 15,000 is like what some athletes have been tested at, I think like Western States one year they did a test.
Where they're really broken down.
Yeah, and I was 116,000. So not trying to quantify mine as being any greater level, but it was pretty bad situation.
How bad it was.
And there was a couple other athletes in the hospital that also had it. One had like 49,000, or no, 49,000. Other had like 36, and they also, I finished that race and they wouldn't let me eat for over 24 hours because they were worried that I would throw it all up and reset the rhabdo, and all this stuff would happen again. And so I would say if I had fallen asleep, and if I had used or maybe had lack of better judgment in that scenario, I would say there would have been potential for me to have kidney failure and to go into some type of shock or something like that. So I don't think people out of maybe my realm think that's worth it, or they think it's crazy. And I would do it again, just because I know that's me. I'm not, and not to say like, but I did use the better judgment. I did go to the hospital. I took the precautions, and eventually I escaped the hospital. We bailed out before they wanted me to leave, but I watched my own levels return, and they did a few different blood tests, and it was trending. They let me eat, and I really needed to go to that hospital. There was a man dying in my room. It was an interesting scenario. So I needed to leave the hospital, and I had a friend, David Rosa, who's a local famous attorney, a great guy, good friend of mine. And we ended up going back into Athens that day and having an amazing meal. So the juxtaposition of literally being not able to eat on a bed in a hospital in the middle of Greece to this amazing sushi meal on the coast of Athens was really interesting.
Life with Walker Higgins, for sure. Yeah. Well, where are things today? I mean, the business is good. You've got you're a partner with Gabby and the Block BR, and what's up for Walker? What can we see in the future from you?
Things are great. I think I've found the last couple of years, or say 3 to 4 years, I found my biggest passion in work, and that's working with high schoolers. That's been an amazing experience.
There's been a bunch of high schoolers that have benefited from that.
Yeah, it's been really nice, and I maybe I get more out of it than they do, which is super rewarding and great. No, I just mean like it's just it excites me.
I only mean that sometimes high schoolers don't realize how good things are for
them. Right. Yeah, sometimes they maybe don't want to be there, but I've got a really good group, and I love working with them, and I love what that transition has done for my own competitive spirit, and able to, I feel like I have a lot of good experience that I can share with a lot of athletes. And I've found I'm best able to do that with these high schoolers. And so that's been just amazing. And then watching a lot of them transition into being college athletes and such is just really awesome. The gym is great. I love having that. We started the Block Fit in 2021. Gabby and I did, and we're just kind of keep growing. We've expanded into different rooms, different outside areas, and that's moving forward. My daughter is starting high school, and that's great. And I've been able to still stay with my training. I don't feel like I've peaked yet. I might have peaked in the 5K and the mile. Actually 5K I think I could still peak. We'll see this next year.
Okay.
I'm 43, but the biggest personal endeavor that I'm going after is in this next year. I finally got my running back under me, and I'm in the 70s and 80 mile weeks, and I'm going after the American 40 plus 100 mile record. So
when's that?
I think November 8th is the first attempt. Okay. So I have 3 races laid out that are going to be the attempts. And it's a weird deal because it's such a personal thing, but I've really been able to, in the last few months, like really that I've like committed, and now I have the first attempt. I feel like it's so beyond personal, just because like where I went and what I can show is possible. I mean, because at like 16, dying in a hospital, turn that around and think that I could become the athlete I became, or the inspiration to high schoolers, or whatever that is. And so I have like this great, I feel like, support that's going to go into that's way beyond like, oh, it's a personal goal. Yes, it's a personal goal, but I've been able to like really narrow it down to like, it's way bigger. And so I'm just super excited. Even if it doesn't happen, I'm just ready to toe the line. Say these 3 or 4 attempts I have before I'm 45, toe the line and see what I'm made of at 90 miles and see how it falls.
Oh, good. Well, I know everybody that's listened today really feels like the best adventures for Walker Higgins are yet ahead. So thank you so much for doing this and sharing all. That's really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jenny.
Well, so now you get to hear about my little stories. I always finish up with what I call running shorts, life lessons. And so funny to think of the one I'm telling is about 2 laps around the track after hearing 153 miles through Greece. But a lot of people don't know, and I don't know if you do, is that in the 90s I trained with Catholic High for 3 years. I actually am an unofficial part of their Catholic High cross country and track team. I even go to their banquets. So, because I wanted to train under Coach Boudreaux, I wanted to try the mile and the half mile. And here you can imagine that's a whole nother story of a 30-something-year-old woman training with high school kids. But, I love them. It was Trey Hendry and, a big group with that Kevin Burke. And anyway, so I trained with them pretty good for about 3 years. And so it's like I'm going to enter an 800 meter. So I entered an LSU meet as 800 meter, and I'm usually known as a road racer. And, in my 30s for one thing, and they're all in their 20s. So if those of you that don't know, and I know you know, Walker, it's 2 laps around the track. So anyway, I'm nervous, as you can imagine, and everybody can imagine that, here I am on the road. They say go and you're out in the middle of nowhere and, by yourself, but here on the track, everybody's looking at you. So, I entered and they said go. Coach Boudreaux was there. So we run the first lap. And we get to the timer on the first lap, and that first lap is 61 seconds. And it's like, oh my gosh, I've never run 61 seconds in my life, not even in training. So I'm thinking all this, I've never run 61 seconds. I can't run 61 seconds. I'm never going to finish this race. I'm going to embarrass myself. All these things are going through my mind. Taking the lesson from Walker Higgins, I'm not going to say that I'm going to ever quit. But the thing is, by the time I talked myself into all the reasons I couldn't, I was on the back stretch, really getting ready to go into the turn. Unlike some of the stories I've told previously, this one does have a happy ending. I found an extra gear, and if I didn't win that race, I ran that race and ran a pretty good time then. So my life lesson, I think, is you never know what your limits are until you test them. I thought I absolutely couldn't do this, and I did it, and I did it well. So thanks so much for coming. I know that you don't know any limits yourself, so
thank you so
appreciate
much.
it. Thanks,
I
Walker.
enjoyed it.
Thanks.
It's great.
That was a great one. You got me quiet.